Oh, it's section last page. Items for considerations.
Somebody does it. Put it on all that.
I'm just.
We can get rid of
I believe file. Bill. Oh, yeah. My kids are.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the one in the mall. Please. Right.
Pray for me that I'm not giving prayer.
Because we're doing the reciprocity.
There are some things now. It's really depending. Yeah, jury duty on, I have. Jury duty on.
Mayor, good afternoon. Notice of a public meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a regular meeting on June 6, 2023 at 5 p.m. in the Commission chambers located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Mayor, it is 5:03. You may call the meeting to order.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, being that we have a quorum.
Next item is invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's all stand for the prayer and please remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. Lord, we thank you that your word was given to us for our good, that your law, your commands were given to us for our good out of love, because you know what's best for us. You know what works for us. Lord God, we thank you for our mayor, each of our city commissioners, and for everyone that has anything on the agenda tonight to speak. Lord, we ask you to lead and guide each person for the very best for the city of Brownsville, for each one of us individually. And once again, we thank you for your love. We also thank you for your discipline. And Lord, help us not to have to experience your discipline very often, but lead and guide us and help us to follow. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. We'll have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
The next item is proclamation. We have one proclamation, Pride Month.
And it is my honor today to be reading the proclamation. Do we have anybody here on behalf of the LGBTQ Task Force to accept this proclamation? If you could please come up. And while you do that, I will read the proclamation. A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating June 2023 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month. Whereas across the nation, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, is celebrated in June, a symbolic month in which LGBTQ community members and supporters come together for various celebrations of Pride, including parades, workshops, concerts, and events to promote understanding, acceptance, and equality for its community. And whereas LGBTQ Pride Month recognizes the impact that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals have had on our history, locally, nationally, and internationally. And whereas the City of Brownsville has a diverse and thriving LGBTQ community that actively contributes to the overall quality of life and culture in South Texas. And whereas LGBTQ individuals deserve to know their community stands beside them and to live without fear of discrimination, harassment, and persecution, regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender expression. And whereas the City of Brownsville is strengthened by inclusion, justice, and love for all, and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all its citizens. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the Charter of said city, and on behalf of all of our citizens, do hereby designate June 2023 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, and further call upon the residents of Brownsville to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of its city, done on this, the 6th day of June 2023. Congratulations.
Hi, good afternoon. I do have a few words. My name is Cesar Villarreal. I am the Vice Chair of the LGBTQ Task Force in Brownsville, Texas. For me, this is such an honor. I don't want to get emotional, right? But such an honor and such a privilege to be living in Brownsville in this age and this year. I'm native from here. I'm a Southmost boy. And I grew up with a lot of bullying and a lot of name calling. But now coming to today to City Hall, and having this proclamation by the commissioners and by the mayor, it means a lot to a lot of citizens in Brownsville. So thank you so much. It's a great change that Brownsville is doing. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Next item, we have public comment period. We did receive 5 public comments. The first one is Yolanda Spies.
Please say your name and you have 3 minutes.
Yolanda Spies. During these past elections, Nurth Galansky stated that the Brownsville Police Department needed tools to do their job to better protect and serve. She was absolutely right. But one thing PD really needs is to know the laws they are supposed to enforce correctly and not violate citizens' rights and the rights to property. Right now, the Brownsville Police Department is dangerous. I said it, If PD doesn't know the laws, they're breaking them, violating our rights, and doing their jobs incorrectly, which forces us to do it all wrong to defend ourselves and get screwed out of what is legally and rightfully ours. When a thief like Samantha Natalie Vargas from 314 Palm Boulevard gets to steal property and then lies about what really happened to it after court orders her to turn it over, and the police protect her and run interference for her, that's a crime. Actually, a series of crimes done by the Brownsville Police Department. The Brownsville Police Department keeps doing this, and that is a crime against Brownsville residents. PD certainly should not lie, verbally mistreat, disrespect, or shame the person either. They do, though. You don't treat law-abiding citizens like criminals. You don't humiliate and get abusive with them. The Brownsville PD started this hot mess in the first place because they don't know the law. That is the truth. That is the root of the problem. Ignorant arrogance. The Brownsville Police Department deprived me of my property illegally, and then when they realized their mistake and that I wasn't going away, they sabotaged my cases, they tampered with my witnesses, and made it a severe uphill battle that I'm still fighting over 15 months later. And I have evidence. Vargas, Samantha Natalie Vargas, filed a false police report. Officer Efrain Cervantes lied on the police report to cover her story. Sergeant Cecilia Valdez yelled at and humiliated me, knowing what he did was wrong. And according to former city attorney Mark Sassi, this is standard operating procedure. To some of you, it may be just a dog, but think about the people who have wrongfully gone to jail, been injured, or killed because of the negligence, incompetence of the Brownsville Police Department. We're paying taxes, and they can't be bothered to do their job correctly? Will you be bothered now that you are sucking on the teat of the Brownsville city taxpayer? What about the chief of police who is now an assistant city manager? With great power comes great responsibility. Be responsible, transparent, and professional. Be appropriate when serving law-abiding Brownsville residents. Fix the problem and don't just smile, because that's not what you're getting paid for.
Next, we have John Rashilia.
Hi, I'm John Rochella.
Garcia, thank you for letting us promote the fastest growing sport in the world at this point in time.
I'm here to talk about tonight about pickleball. I know a lot of you have heard about pickleball. I am actually the district ambassador for the USA Pickleball Association, and I'm here to try to promote pickleball more in this community and surrounding communities itself and in the entire RGV. But what makes pickleball so important to me is a number of things that happen. Pickleball can be played from anywhere. As soon as you can pick up a pickleball paddle to you can't pick up a pickleball paddle no more. That brings a lot of people together. One of the greatest things I've seen so far, I went up to Corpus Christi and went to one of the sites up there, and I see on the court, first court I see a 12 and a 14-year-old girl on one side, and across from them was, guess who? Their mother and grandmother on the other side of the court. All four girls were playing pickleball together in a family atmosphere, and they were having fun. The young ages to the old ages and all in between. And to top off that note, do you know who the #1 pickleball player in the world is? A 16-year-old girl from Florida who plays with her mother, and they are the top 2 professional pickleball players in the world for their category. Ben Johns is the #1 male, but the women have the most points to score the #1 things. But the next story I'd like to bring is that one of the guys, I live in Long Island Village right over there in Port Isabel, okay? One of the people that walk onto the court for the first time, he tried to get some instruction from me, weighed 350 pounds. 350 pounds. He walked onto the court because he wanted to do something with his walker. He walked up onto the court with the 4 wheels on the court, walked up. Today, that guy's down to 100 pounds. He's off his blood pressure medication, his diabetic medication, and a plethora of other meds that he was on because he was an unhealthy individual. The thing that I like to talk about there is what we call the WAC, weight, alcohol, and sitting in your couch or chair. That's what it is, the WAC. Once we can get rid of the WAC for a lot of people, especially over the age of 50, heart disease, cancers and everything else begin to go down. And that starts with something that can get them out of those chairs, stop them from going to happy hour all the time, because 50 and above, what else they got to do when they got no families left, when they got no kids left to do? They go to happy hour to become unlonely. And loneliness is one of these other factors that's involved in this. Pickleball community brings everybody together to be able to play, and it begins a healthier, happier lifestyle for people. And you bring all that together, it's a beautiful thing for not only the individual, but for the community itself. Now, there's a lot of pickleball. I don't know if you know this yet, but Naples, Florida used to be the pickleball mecca of the United States. It's not anymore. You know where it is? Austin, Texas is the pickleball mecca of the United States right now. They have more professionals living in Austin, Texas in the past 9 months than anywhere else. More pickleball court because they support the growth of pickleball. There's a lot of communities out there that are supporting the growth of pickleball for not only the health benefits, the mental health benefits, and the community
Sir?
benefits, but the monetary
I'm
benefits.
sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next speaker, we have Jolie Rubio.
Good afternoon. My name is Jolie Rubio, and I'm chairman of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I see that one of the things I wanted to comment on is actually a public hearing, so I'll reserve my comments on that for later on. But I did want to speak in support of one of your action items tonight on the Montezuma Cypress Preserve. The committee did recommend approval of naming that Montezuma Cypress Preserve. It's resolution number 2023-066. It's something that's it's something within your power to do. It's something that'll make put Brownsville on the map for another reason. I'm a master naturalist, and I'm kind of partial to that park over there. I was influential in trying to get that property bought by the city for a park next to the preserve. And I think it's a great project, and I think it's coming along nicely. I'd also like to comment on that we have a lot of committees that are advisory boards and advisory committees to the city commission. And in the past, I know the beautification committee and the Parks Advisory Board have done like yearly updates. I would like to see more updates from the different committees being presented to the city commission. You have a work session coming up right after this, and those work sessions should include at least one or two committees on a monthly basis, so that you can keep abreast of what these committees are doing, so they don't overlap each other, so they work together with each other, so that you know where they're headed. And they're like the voice of the community, because we on the committees, we hear a lot of stuff, feedback from the citizens of Brownsville, whereas you all hear back from it too. Sometimes they're not comfortable talking to a city commissioner, but they'll talk to somebody that sits on a committee, bend your ear at a bar or at a city event or whatever it is. And I think that by having these committees present to you all what they're doing and what their objectives are for the year or long-range objectives, you can have a better handle on what they're doing and making sure that they're doing their job and they're meeting, and that the people on the committees are not being absent and not doing their job. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and reserve the rest of my comments for the public hearing. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Susan Rubalcaba.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commission. My name is Susan Rubalcaba. I think you all know me. I am here to speak in regards to the work session for the hot tax funds. This time last year, we were here fulfilling the request of the local entities as it related to the hot tax funds. I believe it was stated that we had a little under 2 million for the fiscal year of 2023. Last year, there were obvious concerns with the city's process, and I am hoping a year later we have some of those issues resolved. Last year, we had entities that couldn't even explain why they needed the funds, no real plans for events that would create heads and beds revenue. The discussion lasted over an hour just on the proposed hot tax fund distribution agenda item. It was obvious there was some real issues. Last year, there didn't seem to be much in place for education or in-service for the local entities to understand the proper use of the funds. the application process, or any post-event reports. The application process seemed to lack a lot of pertinent information a city would need in order to reward the monies, follow up on those awards, and stay in compliance with state law. There seemed to be, at least in previous years, a real lack of accountability that caused quite a lot of confusion last year. When I researched some of the other cities, they seem to use a max dollar amount instead of awarding very different amounts to different entities, more of a measurable process in place. Some of the cities base the amount from the actual heads and beds from the previous fiscal years. For example, if the entity had data showing they booked 250 rooms, then they would receive 15K. If the entity show they booked 50 rooms, then they would get 5K. I also know that there are multiple one-time events that attract several out-of-town overnight visitors who are not awarded or given an opportunity to apply. Maybe we should have some of those funds set aside for that. I know, for example, the Brownsville Police Department Half Marathon and similar events, maybe pickleball, have had a great turnout with several of the marathoners staying in local hotels. They wouldn't necessarily need a recurring amount. However, a one-time opportunity to market this event and increase tourism may be an option. On 9/6/2022, some of the concerns and comments from the commissioners in relation to over $2 million requested for the fiscal year of 2023, ex-mayor Trey Mendez said there was a lot of questions that are being asked and are being asked because we didn't vet the companies maybe as good as we should have. And this is a notice to all the entities to be tracking their information for the next year. Current Mayor John Cowan, quote, "I stress to these entities that they will have to prove next year in a real way that they are generating tourism and not just about advertising. It's about what they did, what they bring to Brownsville." If we are to rely on that vetting process of those in charge of hot tax fund requests, I urge you, the current leadership, to implement a thorough application process with accurate data from previous fiscal years that compile the actual heads and beds numbers. I urge you to award the monies with a measurable system, request post-event reports before funds are released to
Ma'am.
ensure
Hey,
compliance.
Susan, time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Hector Ruiz.
Hello, Mayor and City Commissioners. Thank you all for having me today. I want to thank you all again for the proclamation for declaring June Pride Month here in the city of Brownsville. Any chance that I get, I proudly say that I am from Brownsville, and I mean that with my full heart. That wasn't always the case growing up. Growing up here, I was often bullied in school, harassed both physically and verbally. And I feel now that there's a big change happening within the Valley, and it's really starting here in Brownsville. So I want to thank you all for that. Today, I speak as my role as president of South Texas Equality Project, also known as STEP. We are a coalition of individuals, businesses, organizations, advocacy groups from all across the Rio Grande Valley. We advocate for the LGBT community to make the RGV a more safer, affirming, and welcoming place for the LGBT community, and all the people who are part of it, including our allies. Oftentimes we see a lot of people within our community who feel the need to leave the Valley to feel like they can be themselves, their true authentic selves, and feel like they are respected and feel like they have to leave the Valley to live a life where they're not discriminated against. Like I said, I am so proud to see that the change happening within the Valley and starting from here, from Brownsville. Some of the programs that we do are we provide scholarships to LGBTQ youth from across the Valley. Last year, we surpassed a little bit over 20,000 over the past 6 years to 36 youth and allies to provide them support with their educational journeys. Many of them suffer with their grades due to the bullying and harassment that they suffer at school. We also have different support groups for families, for youth, for the trans community, all composed of members from across from the Valley who feel that they need the safe space to share some of their thoughts and just be themselves. So again, I want to thank you all for the proclamation. It really sends a broad message overall to the Valley that the LGBTQ people matter and that our lives are valued. And so thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Next item, we have work session. Item number 1, update and discussion on hotel occupancy tax, grant funding guidelines and application.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I am Daphne Maldonado, Director for the Brownsville Convention and Visitors Bureau and Office of Space Commerce.
And I am Mali Montesam, Tourism Coordinator for the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Office of Space Commerce.
This evening, we will be having a work session on the City of Brownsville Hot Funds Grant Policy and Application for Fiscal Year 2024, which runs from October 2023 through September 2024. Since 1967, hotel occupancy taxes have been an important tool for Texas municipalities to promote growth in tourism and hotel activity. Today, nearly every city in Texas with a hotel operating in the city limits levies a municipal hotel occupancy tax. In turn, hotel guests generate economic activity for local businesses and generate nearly $3 billion in annual tax revenues for local governments, including but not limited to increased sales tax, alcohol taxes, and property taxes. If a tourist is motivated to come to an area or to extend his or her stay at a hotel due to activities or facilities funded with hotel tax revenues, the local and state economies benefit. In turn, the hotel tax revenues generated from additional room night activity funds future programs and tourism-related facilities, providing an economic engine for prosperity for the area. The City of Brownsville currently levies a hotel occupancy tax of 7% within the city. Unlike property tax and sales tax revenues, which cities can use for most public purposes, local hotel occupancy tax revenues fall under a more structured statutory mandate. Municipal hotel occupancy taxes are governed by Chapter 351 of the Texas Tax Code and Article 4 Hotel Occupancy Tax, Chapter 94 Taxation of the City of Brownsville Code of Ordinances. The policies and guidelines in your packet delineate the terms under which the City of Brownsville will allocate revenues derived from the hotel occupancy tax and the terms under which potential recipients of such revenue request and use such funds. The eligibility is determined under Chapter 351 of the Texas Tax Code and limits the use of hotel occupancy tax funds for uses that promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry, and that use is limited to the following categories: constructing, improving, enlarging, equipping, repairing, operating, and maintaining a convention center or visitor information center; paying the administrative costs for facilitation of convention registration, advertising, and conducting promotional programs to attract tourists and convention delegates or registrants; encouragement, promotion, improvement, and application of the arts; funding historical restoration or preservation programs; funding certain expenses, including promotional expenses directly related to a sporting event within counties with a population of under 1 million; funding the enhancement and upgrading of existing sports facilities or sports fields for certain municipalities; signage directing the public to sites and attractions that are visited frequently by hotel guests in the municipality; and transportation. The application process is as follows. The Hot Funds Committee will do an overview of the application before posting in March. Opening and closure of dates of application for Hot Funds will be in June. The review of applications by the Hot Funds Committee will be in July. We will then present to the City Commission based on Finance's budget calendar as well in July. And in August through September, if funding is approved by City Commission, we will continue to distribute. And in October, the
In October, the process of distribution begins.
Post-funding approval process. First, we will create the HOD agreements and memos for every organization. Secondly, we will then have one-on-one meetings with every organization to detail on their agreement and answer any of their questions or concerns. Third, we will send agreement to legal for signature and approval. Fourth, after legal's approval, we will send to finance for signature and approval. Fifth, after legal and finance's approval, agreement must be sent to the CMO for approval and signature. And finally, once the agreements are approved, they will be sent back to finance for the release of payment. Our next steps are hopefully to get the agenda approval on hotel and motel tax policies and application, notify organizations of funding availability, provide workshops for the public. This will be open to anyone who wants to learn about hot funds, not only organizations who want to apply. Then we will review applications and send them to City Commission for approval. The purpose of the hotel occupancy tax funds is to encourage expenditures that enhance the Brownsville tourism, convention, and hotel industry, and that help stimulate the continued growth and development thereof. The City of Brownsville Hot Funds Grant Policy and Application for fiscal year 2024 has been designed to provide clear and written guidelines to those who will be applying and for transparency. Do we have any questions or feedback from the commission?
So let me begin if I may. So the big thing, and I think what we hear from the public also, is wanting to make sure that we're making it known out there to the community that this is something that's available, that any organization that will potentially bring in tourism, bring heads to beds, has the ability to apply. I just want to make sure what the plan is for communicating that to the public at large.
That is correct, Commissioner. We will be providing a press release. We're working directly with our communications and marketing team, and they will be providing a press release, social media posts. We will also be emailing any former or prior recipients of these awards, as well as sending like an email blast in our newsletter.
Thank you.
Just to echo Commissioner De Los Santos, I think that last time we saw the same applicants on the screen. And this year, I think that's the idea for us to expand it for others to have that equal opportunity as well. I had a question. How long do they have after it's open to apply? Like how long is the process open for?
We are expecting to have it between 3 a month open.
Thank you.
And yes, this application is open to any organization, not just nonprofits. We do want to be transparent, and we want to give everyone a chance to be able to bring tourism to the city of Brownsville.
And I know you mentioned workshops as well. Is that a requirement for these recipients to receive the grant money? Do they have to get these
It's
workshops?
a requirement for first-time recipients. However, like I mentioned, we will be opening it up to the public, and anyone will be able to sit in those workshops
Very
to
good.
learn how hot funds works.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. Can you go over the resources that the city can provide to help track visitors that are coming into the city for these events?
Yes, currently, the Convention and Visitors Bureau has a software to track data, which is Placer AI. This software it gives us guaranteed and exact data. This is available for any hot fund organization that needs additional information, revenue amounts, how many visitors came in, how many people stayed at the hotels. It provides very detailed information, and this is available for any hot fund organization.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I do. So my question is, how do you verify that what the monies that were requested are being spent the way they said they would spend them?
They have to provide quarterly reports, and we request that everything is trackable. They have to have invoices and receipts that they have to provide for their quarterly or post-event reports.
And that's only verified with you or with the finance department? What other entities are involved to ensure that?
This is received through the Convention and Visitors Bureau and provided to the Hot Funds Committee for review.
All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Next item, we have presentations. First item, annual presentation to the City Commission by the Special Needs Advisory Board.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. My name is Damaris McGlone. I am the Parks and Recreation Department Director and Liaison to the Special Needs Advisory Board, and here to present. Unfortunately, the Chair, Rudy Flores, got caught up in work today, so we have the Secretary, Ms. Virginia Pena, to present, and we've got Ms. Norma here as well. And so I will hand it over to you, and you can just click. No? There it goes. Okay. A little bit. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Virginia Pena, and I am the Secretary of the Special Needs Advisory Board for the City of Brownsville. And I'm just going to present to you guys here our, just kind of a little bit about our board. It is relatively new. And the purpose of the board, Special Needs Advisory Board, serves as an advisory body to the City Commission and City Manager, and was established by City Ordinance 2020-1574-A to investigate and report on ways the city can more effectively and efficiently assist persons with special needs relating to physical, mental, and/or emotional issues. The mission statement of the board, the City of Brownsville Special Needs Advisory Board shall permanently preserve, protect, maintain, improve, and enhance the needs of special needs citizens of the City of Brownsville for current and future generations. And some of our accomplishments for this past year, we did complete development and approval of our bylaws, development, design, and approval of committee logos. We also did a return to face-to-face committee meetings, development of virtual participation for community members and city departments, development, design, and implementation of a SNAP social media account, and guidance to the police department regarding the new law requiring veterans to have a handicap parking play card or handicap plates instead of a Purple Heart license plate. And some of the other things that are currently in progress, there's a formal proposal to meet with the city traffic department regarding caution signs for special needs children in the area. Development of a formal SNAP flyer that can be handed out at various events or in city offices. Design and obtain SNAP shirts to be worn by committee members when attending and/or volunteering at various city events. Constant updating of the social media page with city and organization events such as the Lions Club, Down by the Border, Big Heroes, BISD, Unique Love, as well as SNAP-friendly environment community business stickers, and also a request to the city for a small budget to help funding printing of flyers, stickers, etc. And as well as a other request from for the City Commission, consideration in the next budget planning meeting for a modest budget to help support SNAP committee initiatives such as shirts, pamphlets, decals, like just other outreach initiatives, and city personnel to research and apply for grants that could be used by the SNAP. So here's pictures of our current board members. The chair is Jesus Rudy Flores. Maribel Leos is the vice chair, and that's me, the secretary. And then we have Norma Alvarez, who's also a member, and Laura Chavez, who's also a member, and Dr. Catherine Fletcher, who's also a member, as well as Alberto Velez. And let me see. As far as the meeting information, the meetings do take place in person. Currently, we have them at the Brownsville Event Center. And they're generally held the last Tuesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. Sometimes that can change due to holidays. And there below you have like the next meeting dates. The next one, you see here, would be on June 22nd and then July 25th. And we just have different changes for the months of October and December due to the holidays. And that's it as far as the presentation goes. I did mention the social media page, and that is currently, it's actually on Facebook. It's a group. So if you search Brownsville Special Needs Advisory, you can look up the group there, and we'll post like different events going on in the city and different initiatives. But do you all have any questions?
I'd just like to thank you and the rest of your committee for all the work you put in. When I got elected in 2019 to the commission, this committee was dormant. And it was a priority of mine and the commission at the time to bring it back. And I think you guys have done a great job. And obviously there's a very large special needs community in Brownsville, and you guys are help advocate for them. And so I would continue to encourage you to work with other groups that are in town that are very active to get their perspective and their ideas. And I think we can do a lot together.
Thank you.
And if I could add on to that, thank you guys also for coming forward today. I know since I've been a member, we've always encouraged the advisory boards out there to come and give us reports, to let us hear, because the departments do a great job of giving us reports and updates on what's going on. We like to hear directly from the citizens. And I know we've seen it from the animal shelter. We've seen it from the airport. We've seen it from the LGBTQ task force, who has reported annually since their inception. So it's great to see you guys coming forward. Other boards should already be on notice that, yes, you guys are absolutely welcome, and we encourage you guys to come and see us as often as you think it's necessary. If you think there's something we need to be aware of as a commission, never hesitate. And I know I have regular contact with several members of your board, and I appreciate the work you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
As well, thank you so much for all that you do. There is a need in our community. It's boards such as this that helps parents feel supported. My only suggestion would be try to reach out to as many campuses as possible, as parents are always looking for resources, additional resources, and collaboration. So it can also provide as a parental support, so a parental support group. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, we have volunteer program update at the Brownsville Animal Regulation Care Center and citywide.
Good evening, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, and our distinguished commission. My name is Dr. Antonio Caldwell. I'm the Deputy Director of Animal Services within the Department of Public Health and Wellness. And here with me, I have our Director, Dr. Art Rodriguez. I'm happy to provide an update on our volunteer program. Although the Public Health Department led this initiative, it was definitely a collaborative effort with many of our departments chipping in. So in terms of awareness, the reason why we have revamped the volunteer program was that we really needed a mechanism that was efficient, that would bring volunteers to the city of Brownsville. We know that our community is passionate, we know that they want to get involved, and we just need a better mechanism to bring them to the city and to identify those areas where the help was needed. Our individuals that have volunteered, we know that they're seeking opportunities to develop new skills. We know they're looking for growth opportunities, but more importantly, they are looking for opportunities to make our community a better place. Some of the benefits are that with the new revamp application, it has really streamlined the volunteer application process. It also will allow our departments to proactively recruit volunteers. And so throughout the year, they'll have a pool of approved volunteers that they can pull from at any given moment. And also it's important that we offer a structured volunteer experience. So it's not just about bringing the volunteer to the city, but we want them to leave enriched. We want them to leave excited. We want them to feel that they have definitely provided value to the community, and also that they hopefully will tell their friends and family, and so that they can also come aboard as well. Some of the major changes to the application process. Firstly, the original application was very lengthy. Depending on what version you got either a 16 to 18-page application. And so we recognized that that was way too long. It has currently been reduced down to 2 pages. Also, the original application was paper, so you had to print it, sign it, scan it, and send it back. By that time, you didn't want to volunteer anymore. And so that has been all digital. And so we're happy that it's a very easy portal that you can click, sign, fill out, and submit back into the same portal. The application is encrypted, so we want to make sure that the sensitive data that is in the application is protected for our citizens' sake. And so it's encrypted. And then also you can very easily attach the PDFs that you might need or any photo IDs that you need for the background check. The second thing that we've added is that we now have a dedicated volunteer coordinator. And so this is new. We have one point of contact that is handling the volunteer applications and all the duties for the internal and external business partners. This volunteer coordinator will also manage the database as well as proactively recruit volunteers. So we can envision that this individual is out in our school districts, at our local universities, really marketing our volunteer program and platform. The volunteer coordinator will also be responsible for conducting the sex offender search for each applicant as they volunteer. Lastly, it's really about creating a structured experience for each applicant. The previous application, unfortunately, each time that there was an event that you wanted to apply for, you had to reapply and resubmit a new application. So now, with the guidance from our legal, we are able to have that application on file for a 12-month period. So you apply once and you're good for the entire year now, versus applying each time you wanted to volunteer at an event. And lastly, the volunteer coordinator will be responsible for giving just a brief overview to the department that's receiving that volunteer, so that we are so that the duties are informed to the volunteer and the department. Because a lot of volunteers do need to track their hours, we have created a volunteer duties form. The volunteer coordinator will be responsible for filling out that form and sending that to the department prior to the volunteer arriving, so that their responsibilities for the day are clearly outlined. At the end of that volunteer period, that form goes back to the coordinator and gets forwarded to the department, and a copy goes to the volunteer as well, so that they can submit that for their records. If we take a step back and look at the process from start to finish, that will look like the volunteer submitting the encrypted application that then gets pinged to a few different people. It goes to PD, it goes to municipal court, our volunteer coordinator, and our HR department. So everyone gets the application at the same time, and then they go to work to their respective duties. PD and municipal court run the background checks. Our volunteer coordinator runs the sex offender check. Once those are green lighted, that goes back to the coordinator, and she reaches out to that volunteer. We kind of fast forward the volunteer as they report for duty to that department for the first day. The department is responsible for just providing an onboarding experience. And lastly, again, that duties form gets turned back into the coordinator and redispersed to the volunteer and the direct supervisor. Now, in terms of next steps, we have begun the pilot for this program at BARC. This kicked off just about a week ago. And we are preparing to communicate a campaign throughout the community as we shore up the pilot. I will say that a week into the application being live, BARC has received about 17 applications. And actually all the applications that have come in have been for BARC, something about cute kittens and puppies, I think. But for sure, we're very happy that they're all there. I will say that the turnaround time right now, because it's a pilot, we're still working out the kinks, but our goal is to have those turned around and validated and approved within 7 to 10 days. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Just constructive. Love the presentation. The one thing I would encourage, because I know citizens sometimes download these decks and look at them later. They don't have the benefit, although they could go back and watch the YouTube video. We don't want them to have to. The use of acronyms. Wherever you can, just put a little legend. 'Cause I know up until you said municipal court, for the life of me, I could not figure out what MC meant. So yeah, if we could put just a little legend on some of those slides, that would help for anybody who goes back to look at them later on.
Yes, sir.
Great
Thank you
job.
for
Thank
that.
you all for what you're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wonderful presentation. And I look forward to growing this program. I just have a quick legal question on the liability side. What are in terms of volunteering, and if something happens, if they get hurt, how does that work?
Yeah, so our risk pool does cover volunteers for some of our projects, and part of the volunteer form does have a waiver and release as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
One more question for you guys, because I know, and a citizen sent me this, South Texas CISD has a veterinary assistance program. Do we have any type of summer programs or things that we're doing where they'll have opportunities to volunteer above and beyond this?
Yeah, I'll let Dr. Rodriguez answer that one.
So STISD has been one of the big campuses that we've used since the COVID-19 over at the iTech campus. They definitely have a vet tech program, and we definitely are now in a position where we can have those type of conversations where, even a week ago, a month ago, we were not poised to be able to do that. So there's two converging here, two fusions. One is our ability to offer that to our community. And then when schools like that offer those type of programs, it just aligns the students' ability to get into higher education and at the same time, our shelter benefits because of their hours. So it's a win-win for the community at the shelter and a win-win for people who are wanting to set their career highlights in the veterinary world.
Excellent. And are there any minimum ages for the volunteer program?
Yes, so we've lowered the age from 17 to 10. So 10 to 17 can volunteer with adult supervision and with adult permission.
And I appreciate that because my
sorry.
10-year-old and I wash dogs
Very
at
good.
the animal shelter. So they really, the fact that you have 10, I really, as a mom that, has kids that really want to volunteer, I think that's good that we're showing our children that. And then, it's also a way to connect with our children.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Last question,
Oh,
when
yes.
does this volunteer program begin?
So we've already launched the pilot last week, and so you can actually go ahead and submit the application now. It's live now.
Just like to make a quick comment. This is huge. I am really blown away that we've enhanced the system after these past years. While serving on the animal shelter, I saw the great need for manpower to be able to help supplement a lot of the shelter. So not just for health, but across the board for our departments in the city, having this digital system in place can really help us relieve a lot of the manpower needs that we have for the city. So thank you for enhancing it. Thank you for working diligently with the other partners, the other departments as well, because I think this is a huge win for us and the community as well, because I've been approached where they want to get involved, but I was one of those people. I got through page 4 and I was like, I'm not doing this. This is way too long. So I am right there with you. Thank you for enhancing it. And please let us know if we can continue to help with the right now the outbreak we had at the shelter. I know that was a big need also with the volunteers and having people go out there as well. So I'm happy to see that we have this enhancement.
Great, appreciate that, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next item, we have consent agenda items.
Before the consent agenda items, I do have an announcement. We went through an extensive selection process for assistant city manager for the city of Brownsville. And through the process, I have selected our chief of police. He will remain chief of police and has also assumed the role of city manager. He is a graduate of Porter High. He shows servant leadership and a lot of leadership in our community. And also he has a career spanning in the city of Brownsville, 32 years. So I just want to welcome and congratulate ACM and Assistant City Manager Chief Salceda to the role and to the executive team. Thank you, Chief.
I'll move to approve consent agenda items.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Next item is public hearings. First public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 2023-1719 to annex into the city of Brownsville boundary limits a property described as being a 40.00 acre tract of land, more or less being Lot 8, Block 411, El Jardín subdivision, located on the corner of Indiana Avenue and North Oklahoma Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. So this is a voluntary annexation petition into the city of Brownsville for 40 acres. Petition established by Secata Holdings LLC. This is a subdivision that will be a future mixed-use development. There will be 119 single-family lots and 5 commercial lots. This property is fronting North Indiana Avenue and North Oklahoma Avenue. And just to go over authorities provided by the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 43, this petition is abiding by all points. It was sent voluntarily in by the developer. There was a written service agreement. We're going through the public hearings, and there was proper noticing in the newspaper and to all taxing entities. This is the aerial map. Another aerial view. And this is the proposed layout of the subdivision. And staff does recommend the approval to annex these 40 acres into the city of Brownsville.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this item? Now I'll entertain a motion to close public.
I'll move to close.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. A public hearing closed.
I'll move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Public hearing number 2, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance 2023-1720 to annex into the city of Brownsville boundary limits a property described as being all of Lot 11, Block 1 of Los Ranchitos subdivision, Section 1, having a total area of 0.904 acre, located at 23832 US Highway 281.
Again, this is a voluntary annexation petition. It's 0.904 acres. And the intended use is for commercial development and import-export office. It is fronting US Highway 281. And again, this annexation abides by all requirements established by Chapter 43. And this is the aerial map. Actually, in our database, it shows that the majority is within city limits. However, when the developer tried to plat this property, Cameron County alleged that it was outside. So therefore, we're still bringing it in to annex that small portion that's outside city limits, but also to ensure that in their records, it's entirely within City of Brownsville jurisdiction. This is a lot. And again, staff recommends approval to annex the 0.904 acres into the City of Brownsville.
Quick question, Martin, and this is just out of curiosity. For a property like this, where the bulk of it is inside the city limit, part of it is outside of the city limit, do they pay city taxes?
They do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this item? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll move to close.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Item number 3, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 2022-235.102 to amend the Unified Development Code, Section 5.3, signs and dealing with related matters as shown in Exhibit A.
So just to recap on this item, this ordinance was presented to the city commission back on December 6th of last year. At that time, the commission did request for staff to provide additional flexibilities for sign exposure, to remove regulations that limit the entry into the billboard market, and also to provide an equal opportunity for maximum sign exposure, specifically on the expressway. And so this ordinance was revised and presented as a work session item on May 16th, which was last city commission meeting. And I will recap briefly on what was discussed at that meeting. And so this ordinance, the purpose of it is to establish a new framework for permissibility, taking into consideration the road type, zoning district, and sign type. And we summarize this in this diagram, basically showing that with the increase in intensity for zoning, traffic, thoroughfares intensify as well as land uses, and therefore the requirement for sign exposure increases. And so this new framework will provide the guidelines based on the context of location, elevation, sign face area, permitted illumination, and the permitted number of signs on a property or on the thoroughfare. And so the signs we will discuss is billboard signs, monument signs for single tenants, monument signs for multi-tenants, and pole or pylon signs. And again, the main goal of this ordinance is to prevent situations such as the one we see here on the picture. And so for billboard signs, the provision to remove 3 structures to build 1 new one will be removed. These signs will be permitted along the agricultural district, traditional neighborhood corridor, commercial corridor, regional center, light industrial, and high industrial, but only on highways and major thoroughfares. The minimum area will be 32 square feet per side, basically taking into consideration the smaller sign types that are in the city, and also a maximum area of 700 square feet for your typical billboard. The maximum elevation will be 75 feet with a 20% administrative discretion, and the maximum number of signs will be 1 per property frontage on a highway or major arterial. The spacing will be measured linearly on the same thoroughfare for small billboards, which we consider as the personal or junior poster billboards based on what the market has established is 1 mile between each sign. And for the larger billboards, your typical larger structures would be 2 miles. Again, permitted illumination would be subject to text out regulations. For monument, single tenant and multi-tenant signs, we have combined the provisions into 1 single section of the UDC, and it will be permitted in all zoning districts with exception of residential subdivisions. The only situation would be where there's a sign presenting the name of a subdivision at the entrance, for example. And so the maximum area would be 100 square feet for the single tenant monument sign and 700 square feet for the multi-tenant monument sign. The maximum number of signs would be 1 monument sign per lot or collector on collectors, arterials, highways, and access drives. The multi-tenant monument sign would be 1 sign per 300 feet of street frontage, and it would allow illumination subject to text out regulations. The maximum elevation would be split between the 2 sign types, 12 feet. For monument signs, 12 feet on all local streets, 20 feet on collectors and arterials, 50 feet on highways or interstates. And for multi-tenant monument signs to cover those signs, those larger signs, for example, at the mall, 12 feet on all local streets, 50 feet on collectors and arterials, and 85 feet on highways and interstates. For the spacing, single tenant monument signs would require 30 feet between each monument or pole sign base, and the multi-tenant signs would require 1/2 the length of the longest straight line the longest straight line diagonal distance between the two corners of the property, and or a minimum of 200 feet between each sign base. This would be on abutting properties. Finally, for pole or pylon signs, these would be permitted in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning, traditional neighborhood corridor, commercial corridor, regional center, light industrial, and high industrial. These will only be permitted on the frontage of highways and major arterials, and the pole and pylon signs shall be permitted along International Boulevard for the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. This to address the desire for the university to set up its own sign. The maximum area would be 3 square feet per linear foot of street frontage with a maximum cap of 630 square feet. The maximum elevation would be 50 feet on a major arterial and 85 feet on a highway or interstate frontage. And the maximum number of signs would be 1 per frontage on highway or major arterial. The spacing, 200 feet from pole or multi-tenant monument sign on abutting property. And the distance equal to the minimum driveway separation on the same frontage. The permitted illumination would be subject to text dot regulation whenever these signs are placed on state-maintained highways. And PNZ did recommend the approval of this ordinance. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do we currently go about enforcement? The reason why I ask is because I've also seen, but constituent shared that there's really bright billboards sometimes that are along the roads that can distract you or can even blind you when you're driving. How do we go about enforcement?
Right, so we're looking to get a new position for the enforcement of this type of issue. But under these provisions that are being proposed, basically on state highways, for example, we would limit the lumens that are on these particular signs that are illuminated or that are changeable copies.
Are we including any language on this amendment to be able to enforce, to have better enforcement on these?
Well, there's enforcement already in the UDC. There's an enforcement section. These sections that we're talking about are merely to reflect the specifications for the construction of new signs.
Because
Actually,
my concern
the
is,
position is funded. It's actually out on our job, it's out on the website so we're trying to fill that position.
I just want to ensure that we have the language in place to be able to make sure that we are able to enforce, and for them to abide by these new.
Right, and also I forgot to mention, we do have a section in the ordinance that controls illumination for whether it is for signage or just a business that has bright parking lights. We do look into that as well.
Thank you.
And just to confirm, I know you mentioned this at the last time you presented, but this ordinance would be applicable to any new signs being built in the future, not the ones that are currently in place.
Correct. Yes.
On that point, then when we're talking about existing signs or proximity to signs, will existing signs that are already in place count?
Yes.
Okay. So then if somebody wanted to put up a new sign, but there's already a concentration of other signs there from a competitor, then they would not be allowed.
Correct.
Okay. And and I'm sorry if I missed it. I know I saw references to large signs and small signs, or small billboards and large billboards. Do we have measurements that are specific to those, just so I can judge? I know I've seen huge billboards, I've seen medium-sized billboards, and then I've seen the
Yes.
smaller ones.
So actually, in the work session, we did have a slide for that. For the personal and the junior posters, which are the smaller ones, it's 32 square feet for the smallest one. That's why the minimum is set at that size. And then a little bit bigger, the junior poster is 55 square feet. And then it'll jump to the poster and the bulletin being the largest, typically at 672 square feet.
Mhm.
And the poster is anywhere between 300 to 500.
Okay, I think,
Question.
go ahead.
Large billboards, it says 2 miles, so there can't be one 2 miles from another one? I mean, how many miles do we have? We have 8 miles?
We have, yes, close to 8
So
on.
we
let's
really
say,
couldn't have any new
Overton.
billboards from International to Alton Glore.
Well, this is on the same thoroughfare, not measured by radius.
Okay.
So it would be on the same thoroughfare.
You're talking about I-69.
And
Like if
in-
we're talking
in-
about I-69 from International Boulevard to Alton Glore, or we already have billboards, that would mean no new billboards could
Okay.
go up.
Yes, in that situation, there is quite a,
Because they're
Data
closer
billboard.
than 2 miles right
Right.
now.
Right.
a linear distance of 2 miles.
Yeah, so we're not gonna have any new billboards there.
Correct.
No, but we'll have some on the other major arterial roads such as 802 and
Alton
the
Grove.
other where they were not permitted, they're now going to be allowed within a certain distance within that same road. And in between those, you'll be able to have the smaller signs. So the importance of not cluttering up too much, with between large and small signs. I mean, we get a lot of complaints about the cluttering of signage. And so we felt that the large signs could have a 2 mile distance within the same road and be allowed, which is not at this time. And then in between that, you can have the smaller ones as well at 1 mile radius.
Thank you.
And I do want to come back to discuss the distance, but I'll reserve that for after the public hearing.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak? Mr. Rubio, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Jolie Rubio, and I'm speaking against the adoption of this ordinance. First, I want to make a couple of corrections. I believe on the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Board that there was no opposition. I was in attendance at that meeting. I was opposed to it at that time. And my reason for opposition is when we adopted the Uniform Development Code, it did away with our existing sign ordinance. It was very restrictive. And these changes affect the city as a whole. The old sign ordinance does not allow off-premise freestanding signs. That was done away with. So if you adopt this change, it's going to allow Budweiser, Southwest Airlines, anybody who wants to put up signs anywhere in the city, whether it be small billboards, big billboards, whatever it is. And the reason for the lawsuit with Lamar Advertising was to restrict the number of these big billboards. And it's been effective for many years. And we should be more restrictive on signs instead of less restrictive because it's a quality of life issue. When you start looking real trashy with all these signs and stuff like that, it doesn't really give a good image of Brownsville. And we want to have a good image of Brownsville. I'm a former building official in South Padre Island, and it has one of the strictest sign ordinances in the valley. And when you go up and down the boulevard at South Padre Island, you see signs, but you don't see a massive signs, massive little ones, big ones, and all that other stuff. They're very restrictive. And it makes the community look a lot better when you restrict the number of signs. You have a little more conformity, and you have better enforcement. You have better enforcement powers. Our enforcement powers on the old sign ordinance was very lax. We have a problem with political signs now. We have problems with other signs and stuff like that. Signs on the right-of-ways, signs on city property. I was told that because of the new Uniform Development Code adoption and the fact that it did away with our old sign ordinance, that a lot of that stuff is gone. We should be more restrictive. And maybe there was another misconception, well, actually a comment that was made by Commissioner Gowan at the last meeting when you had this presentation. She was, we mentioned something about the beautification committee, maybe having some input to the sign ordinance changes and stuff like that. And she made the comment that the beautification committee that she sits on doesn't have the expertise to do this kind of stuff. Well, I'd like to inform you all that Guy Huddleston, Emilio Escobar, who started the beautification committee, wrote the original sign ordinance for the city of Brownsville. And that was adopted and it was enforced for many years. And that was done away with this new adoption of the Uniform Development Code. So maybe you're just jumping the gun or going a little bit too fast with this. Maybe you should send it to a beautification committee for their consideration and maybe their input, since they're the ones that developed the old one. And if you want to make any changes, maybe you should make changes to make them a little bit more stricter, have better enforcement powers to deal with the infractions and stuff like that. I would really like to see how many citations have been issued for illegal signs by our building department or our code enforcement. I doubt if there's even one in the past 2 years. In the last 3 elections, have been complaining about the proliferation of signs, illegal signs, signs in the right of ways, blah, blah, blah. Now we have a lot of our shopping centers that have multiple freestanding signs for all the tenants and stuff like that, when they all should be on one sign. You know, you take a picture and you send it in and stuff like that, and nothing gets done. So maybe if you could table this matter, get more input from the public, and maybe have a public workshop, maybe send it for a beautification committee for their revision, and see what they think about it, and see what the consequences of the changes are going to look like for the city of Brownsville before you adopt any kind of changes like that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, I would just like to point out, in regards to the comment about the beautification committee, the staff was instructed at the previous city commission meeting to send the ordinance. We did send the ordinance. We brought the email. We sent the ordinance to them, requesting the review and feedback, but we did not receive any. So that has been done.
Martin, with regard to enforcement, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's my impression with regard to the city, not just in the area of signs, but with any type of enforcement, whether it's health code, anything else, we don't lack the ability to be able to enforce our codes. I think what the crisis we usually face is manpower and resources. But as I understand it, when a citizen calls with a concern or a complaint, from what I have seen, every department has been very good about following up on that. I know sometimes citizens don't understand. I just had a complaint last week about overgrown lots. And it was a citizen who's concerned because they have a compromised immune system. And they're concerned about mosquitoes and other things of that nature. But I had to explain to them that, yes, we absolutely had been out, but by state law, we have to give that property owner 10 days to come into compliance. We can't go out there and force a private property owner to do something with their property instantly. And I think with regard to what we're talking about here with enforcement, you know, give me your all's professional opinion. Do our current ordinances lack teeth to be able to enforce things right now? Or is it just you are following up on the complaints as they come in?
Commissioner, our current ordinances do allow for enforcement. The sign ordinance is part of the zoning ordinance. And as far back as I can tell, we have not had staffed zoning enforcement program in the city of Brownsville. So this is the first time the city manager has authorized the creation of a position. We're currently out recruiting for a zoning code enforcement manager that can start the program, that can determine what the staffing levels will be needed and the equipment, supplies, and bring forth a proposal to the commission in the upcoming budget. What you see out in the city is a lot of illegal signs. These are permitted signs, but we have a tremendous amount of just illegal signage, signs in the right of way, illegally constructed signs, signs in the windows, signs hanging on walls. So when this person is brought on and you start your new enforcement program, as city manager has said in the past, we're going to have to start with education and right here and just determine how much the commission would like this enforcement program to go out to the community and address all the illegal signage. Then we can focus on the legal signage and bringing those folks into compliance. But we have a long road ahead of us.
But today, if you were to get a complaint about a sign that might be illegal, you have the ability to go out, look at it, and if it's not legal, to issue a citation.
Correct. And we take our one building code enforcement officer in the city and reassign him to do zoning enforcement on the signage.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. I've made numerous requests for signs in the right of ways to be removed, political signs especially, last 3 elections. And I've been working with the city manager, working with the assistant city attorney, Elizabeth. And I was told that, there's nothing they can do and they have to follow state law. State law does not allow signs in the right of way. So we used to go out, if there was a legal sign, the code enforcement would pick it up, they would stack it up on the second floor over there by the building department, and there would be a whole stack of signs in there that were illegal. They just pick them up. If they were the ones that hiring now or refrigerators for sale, anything that was illegal on a telephone pole and stuff like that, they used to just take them down and stack them up over there. You could come pick them up. I don't believe, and on any of my complaints, that there's ever been a citation issued to a political candidate for an illegal political sign. And you all know that some of your campaign people have also, put up signs that were in the right of ways on city property, public property, whatever it is. The big trailers, those were not allowed by the old ordinance, and I complained about those. Nothing was done about them because they said that they didn't have the enforcement powers or something like that. Code enforcement used to do it, and they don't do it anymore. So, it's one of these things where like, you gotta get a hold on things one of these days. I mean, you just, to say that you're gonna do it in the future, and you're gonna hire additional people to do it, and when you haven't done it in the past, and then you say that, you work on it on a complaint basis, sometimes, you don't work on it on a complaint basis and you don't get the job done. So that's why I'm speaking up so that we could get some, before we make changes and make it more lenient, let's go back and try to get back to where we were before we developed the Uniform Development Code and we did away with our old sign ordinance so that we could have, if we didn't have sufficient teeth in it or something like that, maybe we need to put some additional teeth in it, but let's have it, get it back to the beautification committee who originally wrote that sign ordinance and see what their input is and get a good sign ordinance that'll be nice for the city of Brownsville. Thank you.
Now, and I'll offer, Mayor, that I visit City Plaza fairly regularly, and 9 times out of 10, I park in the garage. And both this election cycle and the election cycle 2 years ago, I absolutely saw signs that had been picked up by city staff and were on that second level. So I know enforcement is happening. I know also with regard to state right-of-ways, and I think that's where we've seen some of the changes with UDC. The other concern is, and this is why a lot of cities in Texas are under threat right now of being preempted by Austin, because they overregulate and they stifle competition. And I think that's a situation we've got here where whoever was involved with the ordinance before created a monopoly. And I'm sure the people who have the monopoly love that, but that's not what our city should be about. And I know when we've got a limited number of billboards, yes, every corporation in America can afford that, but the locally owned mom and pop businesses can't. And that's why competition is healthy. That's why it's important to have options out there. And I think that's where this came from and is born out of. So I think that's why, me as a commissioner, that's why I'm considering this, because it shouldn't just be about those who have multi-million-dollar advertising budgets can afford to buy a $4,000 or $5,000 a month billboard on a major artery. And the local mom and pop taquerias, coffee shops, whatever your business might be, just can't compete because you can't afford it. So I think that's where I'm coming from when I look at this issue.
When it comes to temporary signage, like political signs, I know there's issues, legal issues about regulating political signage. I think there was some court cases recently that, we have to be careful on how we do that. So I don't know, is that going to come back as a,
So the zoning ordinance does not cover political signage. It covers commercial advertising. And when you think about signage, I guess you got to think about what's legal with your zoning ordinance, what's illegal signage, which we have a large amount of, and then what's political. And you need 3 different approaches to those 3 different types of signage. We had a very aggressive political signage ordinance in Brownsville, and I think over time with the legislature taking over some of that level of local regulation, we've had to peel back those regulations here in Brownsville. Now, you can have a political sign ordinance. We don't have one at this point that I think we've gone through and developed. We've deferred to state law. But if we're going to try and develop an ordinance that is broader than what state law allows, we're going to have to work through that initiative with the commission and with the city attorney's office.
All right, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Come up.
I have a question in regards to that. If these are privately owned signs, correct? These would be privately. So my question would be if there is a 2-mile restriction and someone comes in or even a 1 mile wants to put a billboard in and there is a billboard there that is not functioning, is old, isn't kept up, isn't maintained, could they protest? Is there an avenue for them to kind of protest that sign out and place a new sign in?
Can you just state your name for the record, please? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Susan Rubalcaba.
Thank you.
No, the current standard is what it is. I mean, I guess, if and when the person is hired to do the enforcement, they find a dilapidated sign, well, then that person will have the enforcement power to bring that up and say, well, it's unsafe to the public. And at that point, if it gets removed, then it will create, let's say, a gap that perhaps will result in sufficient distance between the two signs at each endpoint that remain. So it depends on a lot of factors. Just depends on what's existing.
Next, I would assume in that situation also, whoever the original owner is would have the opportunity to come into compliance, which would then keep the competitor out. Good
Alright.
question.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item?
I'll move to close the public hearing, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, public hearing closed. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I make a motion to approve, but I want to discuss the spacing because I still have some concerns there. But let me make the motion, that way we can open up the floor for discussion.
We have a motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So, and I'm thinking about this, especially when we're talking about the smaller billboards and we're thinking about existing areas where businesses might want to advertise and the distances there. And I like putting things in the perspective, a point of reference that people can relate to. So I'm thinking about football field, for example, and what the length of a football field is, 100 yards, and how many football fields are in a mile when we're talking about that far apart for a small billboard. And I think that number's about 17, 16. That just seems like a really long distance for the smaller ones.
I would like to point out that in between all those small billboards, there are also pylon signs. And what's the highest distance and square footage of a pylon sign?
The highest one we have would be, for example, the low sign at 85 feet. And the approximate square footage is, I believe, 68 square feet.
But those you're talking about are on premise or off premise?
On premise. It's
On premise.
advertising it.
So between the 2 mile and the 1 mile, every business can have their own pylon
Oh, no,
sign.
that I get.
So what I'm asking is, when you look at a street and you drive by a street, every business will have the right to have their pylon sign, and sometimes you'll have multiple, if it's a shopping center, pylon signs together.
Right.
So I think it's bringing in the context of pylon signs at every lot possibly, because we're looking at worst case scenario, 1 mile small billboards and 2 miles large billboards that can have two faces.
And no, I get that. I'm thinking in terms of just off premise, and like Commissioner Cardenas was mentioning earlier, when you're talking about what we have in place today. We passed this law today, not one new billboard can go up on I-69.
No.
So what difference have we made? That's the perspective I'm coming from right now.
And I agree with Commissioner De Los Santos. I've looked into those billboards. The cost actually 3,200 monthly. It is expensive for smaller businesses. And I think the idea here is if we put somebody else to be able to put this, well, you're gonna have better pricing. There's gonna be competition. I mean, we have to be real careful. We can't have 100 billboards on 8 miles, but I don't think we should be stuck with what we have. I mean, we gotta find a fine line there. I mean, the city's got a great one and we use it for a lot of things, right? But we could have a few more.
Well, I guess right now they would be prohibited, so at least you're allowing it along major corridors. We can also see if, we
In-
also can come back, I mean, I think a lot of codes are written for 80% of the time it works, but maybe there's a 10 or 20% it doesn't work. So if we see that it doesn't work, then you can always bring a city-initiated amendment to you saying, you know what, it's really not working, or you know what, it's working very well, let's keep it. So if you all want to say, planning department, do a 6-month check-in to see what we're seeing out in the market, then we can definitely come back to y'all and say, you know what, it's working, or you know what, commissioners, it's too restrictive, no one's really wanting to apply.
I like the idea of a 6-month check-in, but I don't know if I like it with the current measurements as they stand. And I think like we've already said on I-69, large billboards, we know there wouldn't be a single new one allowed. And I think I'd like to see when we're talking about smaller ones and our major arteries like International, Boca Chica, Price, Ruben Torres, Morrison, and Alton Glore. And I hate creating more work for you guys, I really do. But I want to make sure we get this right and then try it out for 6 months. I think I'd like to see if we can put together a map that gives us an idea of, okay, based on what we have today with these measurements, this is where new signs would be allowed so that we can visualize that and see, is this really what we have in mind, or does this not go far enough?
Yes, and we actually did prepare a map. We can send it to you guys via email.
You're holding out on me, Martin. What's up?
I don't have them today with me.
Okay.
We're waiting on
And we
data.
can provide them before the second reading, so even if you wanted to move forward in between the first reading and second reading, provide that information for you also at second
And we
reading.
can still adjust the measurements at second
Yes, sir.
reading.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
That's correct.
Perfect.
Just for the purpose of time, all those billboards, small or large, we don't have their exact location and the ability to map all those. We'll have to actually go out and physically identify their location and then put it in to our GIS.
Mhm.
What opportunities exist for additional signage. So if you want to move forward, that's fine, but then we'll need some time between first reading and the second reading to go out and do that data collection.
I'd be okay with that. And I'd even say, let's think about the heart of the city. I don't want you guys going out to Laguna Tascosa because it's in the city limit. I think if we're looking at, just think about the I-69 corridor and whether it's a mile in each direction or 2 miles in each direction on those thoroughfares, I think that would give us a good comprehensive view of what impact this would have, if any, if that's agreeable to my colleagues.
Yes, for me, yes. Well, you have a first and a second, so.
Will do.
Very good.
So the motion stands?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Item number 4, consideration and action on ordinance number 2023-1721 to approve a budget amendment for mayoral and city commission salaries for fiscal year 2023.
And Mayor,
Good evening, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Council, City Manager.
I was just going to add, Mayor, just for clarification, this one also has a public hearing.
Excuse me?
Just for clarification, this one also has a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. Would like to present an ordinance and for consideration tonight on the mayor and city council salary amendment for a budget. And it's prorated between now and the end of the year. It's actually from the date of election. So we have 106 days or 15 weeks and 1 day. On that 106 days is divided by a year. So it's 29.04% of the annual amount. And the annual amount is what was proposed for the voter ordinance and voting, which is 40,000 for the mayor, And then the 6 council members times 25 for 150, so those two together are 190. And 190 at the 29% is $55,178.08. And so that's the amendment we're proposing for you this evening. And the monies would be coming out of the general fund reserve, which we just presented with our audit in mid-year that it's adequately supplied. And this is just to cover from now to the end of the year. And it's that simple. So for your consideration, are there any other questions?
All right.
Not at this time.
Yeah, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this item? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Next item, we have items for individual consideration. Item number 1, consideration and action to award a construction contract in the amount of $335,703.60 to Enco Planet for the 30 bus shelter improvement project as budgeted.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Jenny Garcia with the Multimodal Transportation Department. We're here tonight looking to award a construction contract to Ingo Planet for the 30 bus shelter bus stop improvement project. Before we do that, though, I want to give a quick, brief overview of how we got here. We started off by collecting data with our ridership analysis, identifying which bus stops were utilized the most, and then looking at right-of-way access. And we did have a lot of challenges with the right-of-way access. Then we moved on to going on to award the purchase of the bus shelters for in May of 2022 to Ingo Planet. At the same time, we also awarded the engineering contract to SWG. So then we moved on to the delivery of the shelters, which were provided in February of 2023. And those were provided in 3 phases, and they're here on site to be Metro. And the current cost of the shelter of this project is $737,000. So we do have a remaining portion left balance that we will be doing a phase 2. But with that being said, we're looking at approval for the 30 bus shelters to Ingo Planet for the construction contract. Any questions?
Not a question, but a comment I'd like to make, because I think it's very important for the public to know, and you touched on it, but I want to reemphasize it, because I know I get questions constantly about different places where we've got just a sign, and sometimes they're just in neighborhoods. A lot of it has to do with that right-of-way acquisition.
Yes.
And I've seen neighborhoods where there's not enough room for a sidewalk, much less a bus stop, before you're at the fence of the resident there. And I've told several of my constituents, the alternative is go further down the road to find a place where we can build a full stop, but now you're talking about that grandmother or uncle or whoever needs that bus transportation having to walk even further, rather than having a convenient stop close by. So just want I want to thank the citizens for their patience as we've worked through this, because it has been a process. And I know as we select the sites, you guys have prioritized based on ridership, but also the ability to be able to put in a stop at those locations. And I know you guys will keep looking for more opportunities in the future. But I just wanted to emphasize that how these get selected and why some places there's only room for a sign, but it's important that those people have access to that transportation.
Yes, thank you. The biggest challenge was the right-of-way access. We reviewed over 50 sites, and we're just going across the board and crossing some out and came down to 31 actual sites that we could put concrete pads in. But we had 30 shelters already purchased at the time. So phase 2 will be continuing to identify more sites and purchase more shelters.
I have a question. What's the time frame for construction?
6 months, 120 working days. Working days.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Item number 2, consideration and action on resolution number 2023-070, adopting hotel occupancy tax funding grant policy and application guidelines.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us again. So we just wanted to give you kind of a summary of what we talked about in the work session. So what are hot funds? The purpose of the hotel occupancy tax funds is to encourage expenditures that enhance the Brownsville tourism convention and hotel industry, and that helps stimulate the continued growth and development thereof. Who can apply for hot funds? We are opening it up to everyone. Just so we can be transparent, obviously, these organizations have to be a Texas corporation that has properly filed documentation with the Texas Secretary of State. And obviously, their purpose or their event has to fit in with the application and the guidelines that have been provided in your packet. Do you all have any questions?
Not a question, but one comment I wanted to make that I forgot to make during the presentation, because I think it's important, given some of the concerns that have been raised, is a new requirement that you guys have in place now is that any recipient has to create a separate line item for accounting purposes so that all hot tax funds are segregated. It's not just, let's look in their budget and see if we can pick things out here and there where it might qualify, might not qualify. There is a strict requirement on the reporting post-event quarterly, but making it simpler so that the accounting is absolutely separated out to ensure that it's going towards what it's intended.
Absolutely. That's why we are requesting that they give us their quarterly reports and their post-event reports, and we will review them along with the Hot Funds Committee. But they are informed here that all hot funds have to be used strictly for tourism, heads and beds, bringing people into our community. And those funds can only be used for that.
Thank you.
And we reserve the authority to, for those that are non-compliant, to withhold funds, correct? If they don't submit their reports on time?
That is correct. If they are non-compliant, it is up to commission to withhold funds or terminate the contract.
Which I believe both of those things should be the last thing we try to do, right?
Correct.
We spoke about it when we
Work
were-
with them, and it is stipulated here. We are giving them a grace period, and it's in writing as well.
I think it's important for you to have that application. I mean, I know we went over it at your office.
Yes.
You met with many of the nonprofits. I don't know how you all selected who you met with. All right, all of them? Let's say most, because you never know. Most of them.
All current recipients.
There you go.
With all current recipients, with the commission as well.
So I think it's important for you to get that application out as soon as you can.
Yes, sir.
That way, if there is anything you need to change, you have time to get it done, right? And put
Correct.
something on there that says, hey, this may change before whatever date.
Correct. And we will be doing workshops. The application will be open, and we've encouraged everyone to fill out their application and bring their application filled out with all their questions to the workshop. That way they can help them out there during the workshop and answer any questions.
'Cause I think another thing that's going to be different this year is the percentage, right? There's going to be, you're going to cap it at a percentage. For arts, I think it was like 15%. For sports, it was like 10%. I don't remember the numbers or percentages, but you're going
The
to
only
cap
one
it, right?
applicable one is the one for arts, and that is 15% of the hot funds.
Okay, that's the only one that has a percentage?
And that's set
That
by state.
applies
Yeah, no,
to
definitely.
our municipality.
But it wasn't that. All right, thank you.
One thing to piggyback on that, just is that I agree with Commissioner Cardenas about wanting to cancel a contract being last resort, but I want to make sure there's no confusion. As far as pausing payments, that's already in place and automatic, that if someone's not turning in their regular reports, the payments get paused until they become compliant.
Yes.
Very good.
And you mentioned that there's about 2 million in the hot funds.
Currently, there is 1 million, but it is an estimated 2 million by the end of the fiscal year.
Awesome. Yeah, so the only concern would be just trying to ensure that we get it out to the community, not only seeing the current or the repeating recipients, but there's a lot of organizations out there that are trying their best. And so definitely excited to see the new recipients as well. And just the marketing, trying to get it out as much as possible to everybody. And then secondly, doing info sessions just to kind of guide them how to fill out, filling out an application can be overwhelming. So just ensuring that we're providing that guidance and assistance to ensure success, because they could potentially bring in many heads and beds, and in turn, it'll help out once again for the hot funds.
We are planning on doing at least two sessions, two workshops, and they should be hybrid as well. And like I mentioned before, it will be open to the community.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, this is an action item for your consideration.
Thank you. I just have one question. Just to confirm that Chapter 38, our ethics code does cover this grant as well, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right. That said, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say
Thank
nay.
you so much.
Ayes have it,
Thank
motion
you.
carries. Thank you, guys.
Item number 3, consideration and action on resolution number 2023-066 to establish the Montezuma Cypress Preserve.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. Again, my name is Damaris McGlone. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Brownsville, and I'd like to bring up Mr. Eugene Fernandez. He's going to present this resolution that has been near and dear to his heart, and he's put much time and effort into this. He has also presented it to our Parks Advisory Board, who voted to recommend approval for this. So without further ado, Mr. Eugene Fernandez.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time to speak with you this evening. My name is Eugene Fernandez. I'm the director of a 501c3 sanctioned foundation that is in charge of historical research management. Why historical research management in regard to a nature preserve? I managed hotels for many years throughout this country and on into Mexico. And we have something that's called destination marketing. It ties in with your hot tax. Ecotourism, huge in the field of hospitality. And another thing, linking it back to my past, I've traveled all over this hemisphere from Tierra del Fuego to the St. Lawrence Seaway in Canada. And I came back to this part of the country in about '96. And I was amazed. I've been involved with this project for going on 16 years. When I saw this tract of land, it almost stopped my heart, because I couldn't compare it with very much of that magnitude with what I've seen throughout my travels. It is a world-class destination. It is something so unique in Texas, in the valley, in the nation, in the world. It's something on the order of what you would find in UNESCO, in the nature preserves. So now that I've seen that we're coming to this point in the process, and I'm so gratified with the city administrations and how they've endorsed and embraced this project, that I'm just so ever hopeful that we'll carry it to that degree further. My next step is I referred to this site as a site. It didn't have a name. It was a child without a name. Now, with this resolution, we have the chance of giving it the dignity of a moniker, of a name. My intention after this is so graciously approved, is to go worldwide. I've got 150 nature organizations on a list to send a press release to, saying, we have this beautiful preserve here, come see us. And then you're going to see them with the binoculars and the whole thing, and then ecotourism will come full circle. Please support this wonderful project. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
This is an action item.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
Ayes have
And
it,
thank you,
motion
Gene, for
carries.
all your hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Action item number 4, consideration and action on resolution 2023-071. 1, suspending the JIBIC bylaws relating to board appointments solely for considering one agenda item, project final, and 2, appointing 1 or 3 special directors to serve on the JBIC Board of Directors with the limited purpose of presiding over Project Final.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Jerry Briones. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation. We're here today because we are having our next JBIC board meeting, June the 15th. And 3 out of the 7 board members will have a conflict of interest with a Project Final, which is a land sale. So in order to be able to get a quorum, we necessitate the appointment of special directors for that particular meeting. We, at the last, just to recap, we had the same incident on April 18th, and Commissioner Cardenas, Mayor Cowan, and previous Commissioner Galaski were the commissioners that, and mayor, that appointed the special directors at that time.
We also had one after, and we appointed different people, I believe. Is that right? We didn't do it again.
I think we've only done one.
That was the last one, sir.
Yeah, April 18th.
Oh.
And do we have
Now-
more or less the duration approximately of how long this special project is estimated?
Jerry, can you answer that question? My understanding is only for this one project.
It is a
clarify
one
that?
time.
Okay.
And that's it. Our current bylaws do not authorize for us to appoint a special directors. So we have to ask for the suspension of the bylaws and the appointment by the city commission.
Yeah, just for that one item.
Okay,
on the
so it's
agenda.
just one project, that one item?
Yeah.
It's not
Yes,
like you're
ma'am.
being appointed for a long period
No,
of
no,
time?
No,
It's just to ensure
for
that
one-
there's
just for
no
that one time.
conflict of interest.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
So,
Yes, sir.
so you would like the 3 members that have a conflict?
Yes, sir. The
appointment.
3 members is actually the mayor, Mayor Cowan, and Treasurer Gerardo Gonzalez, and board member Ana Quinn. So Mr. Quinn was previously appointed by Commissioner
District 1
Galaski.
Commissioner.
So I'll go forward. I'll appoint Kendra Gully as my nominee for that item.
Yes, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Thank
Ayes
you.
have it, motion carries.
And I would assume this is time sensitive because it's
Yes,
June
sir.
15th, right around the corner.
It would-
I was I saw the agenda as it came out and I wasn't made aware prior. I don't actually have anybody to appoint. What are my options for that?
You can self-appoint. You can appoint yourself as the board member.
Yeah, that would work.
Well, while he decides, I'll appoint Andres Shane.
All right,
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
And I'm sorry, sir, could you repeat the name, sir?
Andres
Shane.
Shane.
Thank you.
And due to time sensitivity, I'll go ahead and self-appoint myself for the.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
I have a discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez.
It's not voted on yet. I want to point this out, and I know you're in the interim position right now, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
But in April, I raised this concern. I don't like these items coming to this commission without the supporting documentation. There was nothing in our packet to tell us which 3 commissioners had the conflict or had the pick. And so like we see today with Commissioner Martinez, who's new, he wasn't aware that he should be looking for or vetting candidates for this appointment. That's not proper. Because when we're coming in here without the knowledge to be able to be prepared, that's a disservice to the constituents we represent. This is the second time in less than 60 days that this has happened related to GBIC. I don't want to see this happen again.
Yes, sir.
Anytime there's going to be any appointments, we should see the roster, let us know who has the conflict so we can see who appointed, then automatically we'll know that's my pick or my colleague's pick so we can start to do our jobs.
Yes, sir, and I apologize for any past transgressions. We'll make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Thank you.
And it is the second time. This would be the
This-
third.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll check that to make sure. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
And just as a FYI, if I may, Commissioner Macias and Martinez, in the next couple of days, we'd like to send an invitation to maybe stop by GBIC so that we can do a presentation and kind of show you a little bit of what we do, meet the team, and kind of get to know us a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, we have board appointments, consideration and action on resolution number 2023-067 to appoint a designee and a second alternate to the Rio Grande Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board.
Mayor, City Commissioners, good afternoon. Before I start, I do want to recognize our newly appointed commissioner. We have Alex Mead here. He's been appointed by the governor to represent the Texas Transportation Commission, and so just want to welcome Mr. Commissioner Mead. So, Mayor and Commissioners, for the RGVMPO, the mayor automatically becomes the actual member. As a backup, they always assign a different commissioner, and then third, the city manager serves as backup to that. And so we're here today to ask for a proxy or a designee for Mayor John Cowan.
Well, nobody wants, I'll take it.
I'll nominate Commissioner Cardenas.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, we have consideration and action on resolution number 2023-073 to appoint one member to the LGBTQ Task Force.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. Marina Solesi with the City Manager's Office. Tonight, we do have a vacant position with the LGBTQ+ Task Force. The previous member, Norma Rodriguez, resigned, was appointed by previous Commissioner Golansky, and this individual resided in District 2. We do have, oh, yes, no, we do have these applicants that are on the slide. I was informed that there was an additional applicant I just received for Luna Cisneros, District 1.
This is my appointment, right? I'll move to appoint Esther Siller.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item. Consideration and action on resolution number 2023-072 to appoint members to the Gladys Porter Zoo Subcommittee.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The Gladys Porter Zoo Subcommittee is a committee between BISD, the zoo, and the City of Brownsville in order to, as the master plan for the zoo has been adopted, to further the execution of that document. The mayor is appointed as part of the subcommittee. And then also, Commissioner Roy De Los Santos is also on the subcommittee. And so, Mayor, if you'd like to appoint a third member, then we would have the 3 members. Every subcommittee has 3 participating members.
Sure, I'd like to appoint Brian Martinez to the subcommittee.
Does that require a second or a vote?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Second
motion.
Commissioner Cardenas seconded.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, we have consideration and action on resolution number 2023-069 to appoint a city commissioner to the Brownsville Animal Regulation and Care Committee.
Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. With the vacancy of, ex-Commissioner Jessica Tetra, we are looking to fulfill, to replace her spot on the board with another commissioner. Just wanted to bring this to you for consideration.
And I had been on the animal shelter prior, and there's a couple of efforts in place right now that we still haven't concluded. So I'd like to replace Commissioner Tetru's place on the shelter to continue working with them as a commissioner, since our state statute requires that we have a commissioner on that board.
I'll second to appoint Commissioner Martinez to replace Commissioner Tetru.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Mayor, it is now 7 PM. Would you like to make a motion to go into executive?
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it.
The following agenda items will be considered during executive. Item number 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney related to public funds depository services. Item number 2, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.087, economic deliberation related to Project 99er. Item number 3, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, including contemplated or pending litigation and/or settlement offer related to PDEP.
All right, good.
Mayor, it is now 7:50. Next item is possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. Item number one, consideration and action, if any, related to public funds depository services.
No action in
There's
that.
no action.
Item number two, consideration and action, if any, related to Project Niner Niner.
No action.
Item number three, consideration and action, if any, related to PDEP.
No action.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned, everyone.
It is now 7:51. Meeting has ended.